Hello folks, this is Elric IT. Welcome to today's video in which I will show you how to configure DHCP and DHCP relay. We'll start by explaining a little bit about this topology, in which I am using GNS3 as you can see, though you can use real equipment or also packet tracer or IOU. It's up to you. Well, router 1 is going to be the DHCP server, which has a router and a stick interface pointing to the switch 1. Both PC1 and printer, they are actually routers, but I just changed the symbol so they look like a PC and a printer, though they are routers with the interface facing to the switch, configured to take IP address via DHCP. So the PC1 belongs to the VLAN 7 and the printer belongs to the VLAN 12. On the other side, we have router 2 with a LAN connection to a switch 2, and also a PC, which is PC2, that is also a router with the interface pointing to the switch configured to get an IP address via DHCP. So, as I said, router 1 is going to be the DHCP server, which is going to handle all the dynamic IP addresses on the PCs and the printer. So we'll start by configuring the DHCP pool on the router 1 so the PC1 and the printer can get an IP address dynamically. Let's start. We'll go to the console of router 1. We're already here. So let's start by going to the configure terminal. Then we just have to type DHCP pool and then the name you want to assign to this pool. It can be whatever you want. I'll be assigning LAN, which is one of many names you can choose. It's up to you. Oh, it's IP DHCP pool LAN, sorry. Then once you are inside the pool that you just created, you have to define well, the first things that you must define is the network, which is the IP subnet that the pool is going to assign IPs from. You must define the network, the default gateway, and also you can choose if you want to handle to these devices a DNS server. In this case, I will be using Google's DNS just for this practical example, but you will use whatever DNS servers that you have on your organization. So let's begin. I'll start by typing network, and then I have two subnets. One is the 192.168.7.0. This is a 24-bit mask, so I'll just type /24. In some cases it just doesn't work like that. Let's see. Okay, it's like a space and then the 24-bit which is the mask. Then what's next? I will configure the default gateway, which in this case you are going to configure it as default router. So the default router, which is the gateway, the IP address of this router, which has a router on a stick which is pointing to the switch, it has the 192.168.7.254. That's the IP address for this gateway. So let's assign it. That's 7.254, and then you can assign the DNS servers that you wish. So I'll be assigning Google's DNS, but if you had any other, you can assign it as a second DNS server just by typing the IP address, the second server, right next to the first one. So I'll just type like this example, and that would be, the first one would be the 8.8.8.8, and the second one would be the 1.1.1.1. So let's leave it like that, but first let's see how many options you actually have under the pool DHCP pool configuration. You can see you have many options for many purposes. It goes up to voice for assigning IP addresses to voice devices and many other functions it has. But right now we're just configuring it for assigning IP address to devices like PCs or printers or any other device like mobile phones or whatever mobile device. It can also work for that. So we have already configured the pool and the network that it's going to assign IPs from, but we have also a choice to exclude the IP addresses that we don't want to have devices these IPs. I mean, we can have like some static IP addresses assigned to many devices, but since DHCP does not know that those IP addresses are statically assigned to those devices, it's going to try to assign them dynamically once the PC asks for it or the device. So we have to exclude them manually in the router's configuration, or I mean in the DHCP server, which is router 1. How to do so? Well, you just go to the configure terminal and you type IP DHCP excluded address, and then you type the IP addresses that you want to exclude. What this means is that these IP addresses are not going to be assigned dynamically to the devices that can reach this DHCP server. In this case, I'm just gonna exclude the gateway's address, which is 192.168.7.254, and also I'll be excluding the first 10 IP addresses, which is like this, and I would just do it like up to the IP that I don't want to be assigned, which is 7.10, I mean. So these 10 IP addresses plus the gateway address are going to be excluded from the DHCP pool. So let's see the first PC, which is PC1, that it has already got an IP address via DHCP. Well, I run the command show IP interface brief before I configure this DHCP pool in the router 1 to see that indeed it has no IP address, but it is looking for one via DHCP. I don't know if I have already configured the switch to belong to the VLAN 7 on the PC1 interface, but let's see if it does. If it hasn't not got the IP address, it means that the switch is not configured on VLAN 7 in the interface that points to the PC1. Interface brief. Okay, indeed. Let's go back to the topology, and I should have here. I should have the interface 1 with the with VLAN 7, which is the interface 1 or the port 1 is pointing to the PC1. In this case, it doesn't have, so I must remove all interfaces for then configuring the switch, because it does not let me once the switch has interfaces already connected to it. So let's just delete them like this, and then let's configure it. Delete. I'm gonna delete all of them, and this, the first port, which is the port 0, I'm gonna be assigning it as a .1Q, which is a trunk, since the port coming from the router 1 is a router on a stick, which means it encapsulates traffic with tags. So let's add it. Next port is going to belong to VLAN 7, which is going to be the port 1 facing to the PC1. Add, then port 2 is going to belong to the VLAN 12. Oops, here I made a mistake. It should be access port. Here it goes. And then VLAN 12, access also, apply, then okay. Then we can connect the interfaces. There it is. So let's go back to the PC1 to see if it has already got an IP address via DHCP. Okay, now we can see that it does not have, as I did prior to configuring the switches interfaces. Let's do it again. Okay, it is not getting one yet. Let's go back to the router 1 to see if it has the DHCP working. So IP DHCP bindings. This command is to see if it has already assigned an IP address via DHCP. It will log it in this table, and you can see what IP address is assigned to what client or MAC address. Let's see, show run to see the DHCP configuration. Okay, I have network. Let's say okay, default router. Let's just see show IP interface. Brief. Okay, that's okay. Okay, I just took a little bit, but as you can see, the PC1 has gotten an IP address dynamically through the fast Ethernet 0/0 interface via DHCP, and has gotten the IP 7.11. As you can see, it got the 11 IP because the first 10 IPs were excluded from the pool, so it worked as expected. Here is PC1 has already gotten an IP via DHCP. Let's go with the printer, but first, since printer is belonging to VLAN 12, we got to create the DHCP pool for VLAN 12. The DHCP pool for VLAN 7 I created, or well, I name it just like LAN, so I must create the DHCP pool for VLAN 12 as LAN _12, so we can identify each one to see which is for one and the other. So let's do it. IP DHCP pool LAN _12, and then network 192.168.12.0 space slash, which is also a 24-bit mask, then the default router, which is the gateway, which is 192.168.12.254 also, and then DNS servers. I'm just gonna assign the same. The first is the Google DNS, and the second I will be assigning this one. Let's just exclude the first 50 addresses and also the gateway address to see if it works properly and the printer gets an IP address from the segment that it should. IP DHCP excluded address 1 up to 12.50, and also I'll be excluding the gateway address. So as you can see, I got an IP address. Since I didn't apply the exclude address before assigning the network to the pool, it already was serving IP addresses dynamically because I had not excluded any IP from the pool. So as I did it after creating the pool and then assigning the network to that pool, it assigned the first available IP address, which is the 12.1. But if I remove this IP address and try to get a new one, it's going to assign me one from the ones that are now available, which should be the 51, the .51. Let's see. First, let's see that indeed it has the 12.1. Let's remove it. Interface fast Ethernet 0/0. No IP address DHCP. Oh, no IP address DHCP. Where it is? No IP address. Oh, it took me out of the interface. DHCP. Okay. Let's verify that it has no longer an IP address through that interface. As soon as it responds. Okay, do show IP interface brief. Okay, it has no IP address. Let's configure it back. Okay, show IP interface brief. It is looking for an IP address, and it has finally got one, which is the first available IP address, which is the 12.51, as expected. So well, we have already configured the DHCP server for a local area network. In this case, it's 2 local area networks, 2 VLANs. But what if we have 2 or more remote networks that we want to get this DHCP server to assign IP address dynamically to those remote networks? What will happen? Well, going back to this topology, we can see that router 1 has a connection to router 2, which has a local network, though DHCP, as you know, it's a protocol that broadcasts in layer 2, so it would broadcast, the PC2 would broadcast pointing to a DHCP server, to whatever DHCP server that it is listening. It would send a broadcast so it can get an IP address, but since it is a layer 2 broadcast, it will go everywhere but not passing the router 2, because every router interface stops broadcast. It does not pass broadcast from one interface to the other. So what would you do in this case? Well, that's what the DHCP relay is for. You must assign DHCP relay in router 2 so it can get all those layer 2 broadcasts, which are broadcast packets, and it will convert those broadcasts into unicast packets, and it will send those unicast packets to the DHCP server with a source IP address of the interface that it received the broadcast, which it would be the IP address that has that interface. That's how the DHCP server will know what IP address, or from what DHCP pool it will assign an IP address. It's going to look for the source IP of that unicast packet, and will look for an available IP address of that subnet. It will look for that subnet in the DHCP pools that it has, and it will handle one available from that pool. Then it will send a unicast packet to the router 2 in this case, and router 2 will finally handle the DHCP IP address from the DHCP server to the PC2. So in this case, let's go back to the PC2, and we can see that it has no IP address. Well, let's first configure the DHCP pool for this network, which in this case I don't remember what it is, but it should be 192.168.103.254. Okay, this is the DHCP pool network that I'm going to create in the router 1, which is the DHCP server. Let's go for it. IP DHCP pool remote LAN. First I'm gonna exclude the first 5 addresses of this network, which is IP DHCP excluded address, and then I'm gonna exclude the first 5 IPs. Which one? And the gateway, which is 254. Then I'm going to proceed with creating the pool and then assigning the network. It's also a 24-bit mask. Default router and DNS servers. Okay, so as you can see, the router 2 has the interface fast Ethernet 0/1 with this IP address pointing to the switch 2, which has the PC2 connected to it. But since we don't have DHCP relay, PC2 is never going to get an IP address via DHCP, because all those broadcasts that it is sending are going to be stopped by the router 2. What do we have to do? Well, configure DHCP relay, and how to do so? We go to the interface where the DHCP broadcasts are going to be received. In this case is the fast Ethernet 0/1, and then it's just a simple command, which is IP helper address and then the IP address of the DHCP server. In this case, the IP address could be any IP address that the DHCP server has. In this case, the IP address, an IP address of the router 1. In this case, I'm gonna be using 10.0.0.1 to point it with the IP helper address. Okay, but first I must configure an default, an static route, so we can reach that network from router 1, and so we'll have to also configure static routes from router 2 to reach the two local networks connected to router 1. IP route, and the next hop, which is this. And then once it is configured, the DHCP relay, let's go back to the PC2 to see if it has already gotten the IP. Okay, not yet. Let's just take a look on the switch to see if I configure properly the interface pointing to the PC, or if I didn't assign any. Okay, I guess I didn't assign any IP, any VLAN, so it means it's just going to take the VLAN 1 through router 2 interface and to the PC2 also. Let's go back. Okay, it took a little bit, but finally we have got the IP address via DHCP, and as we can see, it got the first available IP. As if you remember, we excluded the first 5 IPs, leaving the 6th IP available as the first one, and that's the IP that it has received. So let's just configure the routes here so we can reach the local networks at router 1. Let's see the IP route 7.0, and the second one, which is the 12.0. So let's do a test to see if PC2 can reach PC1 and the printer. Let's remember, PC1 got the IP 192.168.7.11, and the printer the IP 12.51, and the PC2 has gotten the 103.6, if I remember well. Let's do the test. Ping. This is the IP address from the PC2. Let's see if it reaches it. Okay, indeed it reaches it, so it works fine. Let's see if we can reach the printer. .51. Okay, indeed, we can also reach the printer. So as you can see, guys, configuring DHCP is not a big deal. I hope that after seeing this video you are well to configure DHCP on a real environment. Whatever comments you have, leave it on here in the comments, and we'll see you next video.